Hello, I'm Mike Williams. As we prepare for the climax of Euro 2020 here on 5 Live, we're going to spend the next hour reliving the last time the tournament was held here on home soil, Euro 96. This week just gone marked 25 years since Germany beat the Czech Republic in the final at Wembley, the culmination of arguably the most memorable European Championship until now. In a programme first broadcast on BBC Radio 2 last month, Gabby Logan now presents Euro 96, when football came home.
When someone mentions 1996, what's the first thing you think of? It might be the Spice Girls, Toy Story, the Macarena, Oasis at Nebworth, or Take That splitting up. All of them iconic moments from that year. But for me, 1996 will only ever be synonymous with one thing.
The tournament had such a fantastic effect on everybody. We were able to lift the nation for 4 or 5 weeks.
It's the pinnacle. If you're going to be a player, you play for England. If you're going to be a coach, if you coach England, it's a magnificent, it's a privilege.
We talk a lot about teams capturing the spirit of the nation. The Euro 96 England team are one of the few examples who can genuinely claim to have done that.
You start believing, don't you? You start thinking, oh, we might have a chance here.
Yeah, after the game, that was probably the first time I thought we might be on to something special here.
25 years ago, a football tournament not only changed the fortunes of a national team, but this country's relationship with the sport itself. Hi, I'm Gabby Logan, and as part of BBC Radio 2's Summer of 96 season, we're going to spend the next hour looking back at the iconic Euro 96.
Alan Shearer has got the breakthrough for England.
That minute changed everything.
McAllister with his right foot. Seaman saves for England.
The fans singing the song at Wembley is just the best thing that's ever happened to me, ever, and ever will, I imagine.
Who loses his man, Gascoigne? I don't believe it. The goal was yawning at his mercy.
Football's coming home, cascading around Wembley. Football certainly came home to the British Isles today.
Welcome to Euro 96, when football came home. You, like me, might be caught up with football fever all over again this summer, but our story today starts in December 1995 at the group stage draw for Euro 96, when England, who'd already qualified as hosts, found out they'd be up against some very familiar faces at the tournament.
So, will it be England and Scotland? 107 meetings they've had, England and Scotland. Are we to have another one? Yes, we are! England and Scotland in the same group, with Switzerland and the Netherlands.
So, with the group sorted, the long countdown to Euro 96 was on. To help his team unwind ahead of the tournament, manager Terry Venables took them to the Far East to help escape the media glare back home. But that didn't go completely to plan.
Tonight in Hong Kong, nightclubbers were finding out what some of England's footballers do on a night off.
I did say they could do it. It just went over the top.
So-called dentist's chair, where Paul Gascoigne enjoyed tequila. But the tales of champagne and £140 a bottle follow allegations of damage to the team's plane.
A drunken night out that saw some of the players take part in the infamous dentist chair drinking game and subsequent damage to a Cathay Pacific plane on the flight back to the UK resulted in some terrible headlines back home. And the FA were quick to act.
The England squad has accepted collective responsibility for what happened.
FA spokesperson David Davis.
The matter is now being dealt with internally. The players have expressed their sincere regret for the incident.
They had permission to go out drinking, and that is a fact. There were some supporters there taking some photos knowing, well, that's life.
Finally, at the start of a 6-week heatwave, and after what felt like a lifetime of waiting, Euro 96 was here.
Well, on to sport now, and the eve of Euro 96. The European Football Championships start tomorrow.
After 2.5 years, the real thing is finally here.
Euro 96 is the third largest sporting event in the world after the Olympic Games and the World Cup. It's the biggest sporting event in this country since 1966.
The Daily Mirror talks to Pele, who says England can win it. The Telegraph has Bobby Charlton. He says we have a chance to prove we're as good as we think we are.
For some of those chosen today, it'll be their first taste of competitive international football. Like all the others in the England squad, Gareth Southgate of Aston Villa is hoping that he'll make the side. 4 years ago, when the last tournament was taking place, he was sunning himself on a beach in Portugal with his mates.
It's funny because I turned around to a good friend of mine who I was with and said, oh, it'd be fantastic to be involved in Euro 96, wouldn't it, with it being in England and everything. But this time last year, I have to say, it looked a million miles away, but I'm just so proud and feel so privileged to be involved with the England squad in general. But if I was able to play at some stage during the championships, it would be fantastic.
There was a tremendous amount of excitement about it because it was something that if you were 40 or under, you just would have never seen before, because the previous time that England had hosted something this big would have been the 1966 World Cup.
Michael Gibbons is a football historian who wrote a book all about Euro 96 called When Football Came Home.
It was quite a coup for England to get the tournament. The UEFA president at the time, Granit Johansson, referred to it as England's final acceptance back into the fold of the international football family, and after all the problems they'd had in the 1980s with hooliganism. So there was a huge amount of excitement.
So it's the 8th of June 1996, and after all the build-up, we were finally going to get some football. But before we get to the action, let's have a listen to the official song of the tournament. No, not that one.
You join us here at Wembley, where Mick Hucknall has just started performing the Euro 96 theme. Shall we listen?
All eyes were closed.
Simply Red were asked by UEFA to record the official Euro 96 song, and this was the result.
We're in this together.
We're in This Together was performed at the opening ceremony and released 2 days later. The video featured a very youthful Gary and Phil Neville, but the track failed to reach the top 10, peaking at number 11.
Now, that was very impressive. Mick Hucknall, accompanied by his band.
There was, of course, another song that became the soundtrack to the summer of 96, but more on that later. In the meantime, let's get back to Wembley.
We've got the red arrows flying past at the moment. We're 50 minutes away from kick-off, and I just can't wait. Ian Wright is with us. It's great, isn't it?
I just can't wait for the game to get started. I can't eat anything, I can't drink anything. It's killing me.
But I guess you didn't know. As they said, the story goes. Baby, now I got the
Euro 96, it's all about to get underway. The biggest event held here since, well, you've heard all that stuff.
The whole squad hoping just to get the tournament underway. Preparatory work's all well and good, but as soon as the tournament starts, everyone will be happy.
Stuart Pearce was chomping at the bit to get started, as was his fellow defender, Tony Adams.
I'm sure the fans will get behind us. If we're doing well, then I'm sure they'll have a nice occasion.
The full house packed out Wembley to watch the tournament hosts kick off Euro 96 against Switzerland.
We really want to hammer it into the Swiss and let them know that they're in for a game right from the start.
As the two teams emerge and Wembley is ablaze with colour, wonderful noise, and it's what we've been missing for 2 years. Savour this moment. It might only happen once in your lifetime that England can stage a major tournament like this. Do you think that perhaps we're being a little over-optimistic about England's chances? People are saying we're going to win it.
No, I mean, I don't see why we shouldn't think we're going to win it. People are doing exactly the same thing in 1990. We got to the semi-finals, and I think we've got the same kind of spirit in the camp. I believe that we can do anything we want to do.
So to the first match, England against Switzerland in Group A. Wembley packed to the rafters, the atmosphere electric.
Terry Venables, immaculately dressed in a suit this afternoon, wearing a red rose in his left lapel. I can't remember the anthem being sung quite as passionately in this magnificent old stadium. The last two European Championships, well, England had best forget. May 1996 be very different, but above all, may the tournament itself be something to remember.
Here we go then.
Life will give us power. Then what came and made us free.
The 1996 European Championship starts here. We're in this together, folks. 3 weeks of great football, we hope, and England get us underway.
Gascoigne plays it forward to Shearer, and now Ince, 25 yards out, slipped into the penalty, and Shearer's onside! Shearer scored for England!
After almost 2 years without an international goal, Alan Shearer finally ended his long drought, and England were off and running.
I'm so pleased for him, because now I believe Alan Shearer will definitely go on to be the top man in this competition.
But the home side couldn't extend their advantage, and there was a late sting in the tail.
Handball by Pearce, penalty to Switzerland.
We've been sitting back so much it was almost inevitable that the Swiss were going to score.
Seaman waits, Turkelmats hits it low into the corner.
And they're getting the ball in there and they're causing us problems.
Ian Wright was lost for words.
Now we've got to try and win the game, and I just can't believe it.
And there's the whistle, and the Swiss celebrate. England troop off in some despondency towards the dressing rooms.
I'm disappointed, but we're not finished yet. You're talking like we're out of it. We're still very much in it.
The News of the World, England's Euro 96 disaster, calls them cuckoo clots. The Sunday Mirror, God Albus. In the Sunday Times, the Swiss refused to roll over. And the Express says the England fans left Wembley thoroughly Swissed off.
They're going to get 3 points against Scotland and then try and get something against Holland as well, to be sure, getting through. So it's going to be tough. They're going to have to play better than that.
I have never seen a team in a major tournament so unfit. I thought it was an absolutely disgraceful performance in the second half.
England have made life very difficult for themselves now. Big games to come here at Wembley against Scotland and against Holland.
Well, one of the players who had flattered to deceive against the Swiss was Paul Gascoigne. England's enigmatic midfielder was, for many, the face of Euro 96. He was not only the most famous footballer in the country, you could say he was a living personification of the 90s.
Paul Gascoigne has had a very severe haircut for this tournament. Shaved closely to his head, bleach blonde. He wants to be centre stage.
After Italia 90, because of what he'd done at the tournament, Gascoigne became the most famous footballer Britain had seen since probably George Best.
All I know is I went on some chair for a filling. Yeah, the dentist chair, obviously it was my birthday as well that time, and I know that, so talk about celebrating your birthday.
You can do anything that you want to do, put your mind, body and soul to it, prove it to yourself.
To Italia 90 manager Bobby Robson, who says his hero then, Paul Gascoigne, daft as a brush, is still England's key man, but has to become the most responsible player in the championship.
He has such an obvious connection with the fans. He just had this real bond. They emotionally invest in him and what he's doing on the pitch.
Pele, perhaps the greatest of all time. He's been talking to Gary Richardson.
Which players do you particularly like in the England side?
I like Paul Gascoigne. Brazil has a player almost like him, the same character, Dunga, midfield of Brazil. Brazil won the World Cup. Paul is a player who brings the team up. They fight for win. He's a leader. I like him.
That night before the game in Scotland, it was 10 o'clock and I couldn't sleep, and I knocked on his door and he went, "What do you want?" I went, "I'm worried." And he went, "Sit down." I went, "Yeah." He said, "What are you worried about?" And I went, "I don't know if you're going to pick us or not." He said, "I'm not." So So I've got tears in my eyes, right? I'm saying, please, I promise I play well. And he left us go for about 45 minutes, and now it's like 11:15. He went, of course, you're playing now, get to bed and sleep.
A huge roar. Guess who's just come out? Paul Gascoigne on his own, an absolutely massive roar.
It felt like he was returning to the kind of form that he'd shown at Italia 90, and that gave England a lot of hope, I think, going into the tournament, because Venables was obviously keen to build his team around him. Gazamania took hold thereafter.
You've got to get it right.
Scotland have opened their Euro 96 campaign with a creditable goalless draw against Holland.
Scotland also started their tournament with a draw. Craig Brown's side held the Netherlands 0-0 at Villa Park.
Our fans are pleased with the fighting performance. That's our hallmark. We just have to get that extra bit and score a goal, and I think if we got a goal it would lift the whole camp.
So it was on to the second group game. Ever since the draw had been made 6 months previously, it felt like all the build-up had been leading to this moment. And now, on a hot mid-June Saturday in 1996, the day had finally arrived.
Scotland and England soccer teams have been limbering up for tomorrow's Euro 96 match at Wembley. It's the first time the two countries have met at senior level since 1989, and with a capacity crowd guaranteed, it is the most eagerly anticipated match of the championship so far.
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play?
In all 124 years of Anglo-Scottish rivalry, no single game had so much riding on the result.
We don't care about the performance as long as we beat the English.
Because we love the English.
We cannot stand them.
Few beers, good weekend, can't beat it.
The hype in Scotland was very, very big. I mean, the level it reached was fever pitch.
When it comes to these sort of games, everybody thinks that Scotland or Wales, if we're playing them, or whoever, are more passionate about the game than the English, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Colin Hendry and Gareth Southgate remember the pressure was immense, and the England manager wasn't doing much to play it down either.
I remember him jousting with a member of the foreign press who said to him about this game with Scotland, I mean, it's not like a war, is it? He said to Terry. And Venables, with that trademark twinkle in the eye, replied, how far do you want to go back?
Good afternoon from Wembley. The first was in 1872, but this is the biggest. England against Scotland.
It was a simple fact that we just couldn't get beat off Scotland, and if we did, then we would have been struggling to qualify for the next stages.
There was a huge security operation around the game as well. I think 1/10 of the Euro 96 security budget was spent on this one game.
I think it's a chance for this English team to show the nation that last Saturday was a one-off.
This game has been hyped up. Hopefully it'll live up to that expectation.
Meanwhile, another one of England's experienced players took hostilities to a new level.
I remember Stuart Pearce blanking all the Scottish players during the handshake.
Well, probably if the truth were known, I didn't particularly want to shake hands with them. We're about to do battle with another nation, basically. You've got no friends when you play against a team like that.
The oldest international fixture of them all.
But for all the expectations, the colour and spectacle was largely confined to the stands during a first half that did no justice at all to the occasion.
An uneventful, lacklustre first half meant it was goalless at the break.
It's still 0-0 though, still anybody's game, and Scotland, look what they're doing. Scotland are running off the field. England, shoulders drooped a little bit. They need to be picked up now during the half-time.
What a load of rubbish. Wasn't that a pathetic first half? Absolutely shocking. I'm afraid it is just a parochial little affair. Gascoigne, I am amazed that he is still out there because he has contributed nothing.
Terry Venables made a substitution at the start of the second half, replacing Stuart Pearce with Jamie Redknapp.
Terry, can you explain the significance of the substitution, please?
We're not keeping the ball as well as we'd like, and I'll put Jamie Redknapp in there to help us do that.
That's exactly the reason that the FA had hired Venables, for that kind of innovative tactical thinking.
And that proved to be a masterstroke.
Redknapp to Ince, away in the far side, the arm is aloft from Gareth Southgate. Anderton has it, collects it, gives it back to Redknapp, to McManaman, the Liverpool Joe. McManaman comes forward, edge of the penalty area, sides it to Gary Neville, there's the cross in there, far post, Alan Shearer has got the breakthrough for England. Great England move down the right side, inch perfect cross by Gary Neville. England 1, Scotland 0, Alan Shearer.
11 minutes from time though, Scotland were handed a lifeline.
Ball played into the near post, Jury goes down and Adams has fouled him and it's going to be a penalty to Scotland.
Captain Tony Adams was contrite.
It was a very impetuous thing to do and I don't recommend it. Going back, I'd rather not have done it.
And Gary McAllister, the Scottish captain of Leeds, has this chance to put Scotland back in the game. We've got 13 minutes to go.
But was there something else at play?
I was watching the ball and then, focusing on him as well. The last minute, I just noticed that the ball started gently rolling.
Goalkeeper David Seaman.
It just flashed through my mind, is he going to stop? And then I could see him carrying on. But, he put his foot at the side of the ball and got a real good strike on him.
McAllister for Scotland. McAllister with his right foot. Seaman saves for England. Fantastic save by the Arsenal goalkeeper.
Later, Uri Geller would claim he had used mind power to move the ball half an inch to the right just seconds before McAllister struck it.
He puts the ball down and I said, this is it. I've got to do something. I've got to move the ball away from his foot.
Uri was hovering above Wembley in a helicopter paid for by a tabloid newspaper.
So I looked out of the window and I shouted, 1, 2, 3, move! Lo and behold, the ball moved.
Seaman makes a monumental save.
Even Gareth Southgate spotted it.
I don't know if they've shown it on the television, but the ball rolled off the spot just as McAllister was about to kick it, and I don't know if that put him off his stride.
But the man who missed the spot kick wasn't prepared to give Uri any of the credit.
It didn't roll. If you were a golfer on a green on a windy day, it was just a flicker. It didn't really move. So I'm not using that as an excuse. That didn't cause me to miss.
Well, thank heaven for that. Thank heaven for David Seaman.
Then, exactly 60 seconds after Seaman had saved the penalty, at the other end of the pitch, a moment of pure genius.
Now Gascoigne for England lifts the ball over Hendry in the area. Oh, scores! A wonderful goal for England. Paul Gascoigne, the Scottish Player of the Year, may have gone some way to putting Scotland out of the European Championship. It was stunning skill from Gascoigne.
Gaz's goal was just incredible. The control, the way he flicked it up in the air and knocked it past Andy Gorham.
Many people have said he shouldn't be in the England side. That's his response. It's Gascoigne and it's England leading 2-0.
Fabulous skill from Gascoigne. We've been talking about taking him off for half-time. Then he picks the ball up, flicks it over Hendry, volleys it into the net, and you will not see a happier man alive than Paul Gascoigne at the moment.
Lay down behind the goal. They did the mock dentist's chair celebration. There's a bit of a two fingers to their detractors in the media.
Because I remember us saying that whoever scores, lads, do the dentist chair.
Well, it wasn't whoever scored. It was if Gaza scored, they're doing the dentist chair.
What can you say about the guy? I was one who thought that he shouldn't have been dropped today, but that is where Gascoigne is very special. And surely now England have booked a place in the quarter-finals. What a goal by Gascoigne.
I remember watching that game and it was just pure drama, their second half. Of course Gaza was going to be involved, wasn't he? I can still visualise the crowd going wild. It was one of those matches that you will never forget from a major tournament.
I would say the whole memory of the tournament flipped in 1 minute.
What an amazing period of play at Wembley. It's now 2-0 to England.
That minute changed everything, so they were looking at 1-1. Within that minute, it's 2-0, and they've got at least 1 foot in the quarter-finals.
After the game, that was probably the first time I thought we might be on to something special here.
You start believing, don't you? You start thinking, we might have a chance here.
It set the tournament up from an England point of view, clearly.
This is the moment they'll talk about, when Gascoigne stamped his indelible mark on Euro 96.
All right, we've left it long enough. Time now to talk about the song. At the start of 1996, the FA asked 90s Britpop band The Lightning Seeds if they'd write the official England song for Euro 96. The band already had an association with football. Their song Life of Riley was used for the Goal of the Month segment on Match of the Day. To begin with, the lead singer Ian Brodie was unsure.
The idea came up a couple of times about writing a song. I was a little bit, didn't feel like I would be ideal to represent England fans.
So, Ian recruited 2 comedians who were making a name for themselves with their own late-night football-based TV chat show on BBC Two.
And welcome to the last in the current series of Fantasy Football League.
This week we'll be recreating an end-of-season battle from 1989.
David Baddiel and Frank Skinner.
I'd seen David and Frank on the TV and loved what they were doing, and felt like if those guys would do it, that would be worth doing.
I think in the 90s we were seen as being at the centre of a thing called the New Lads culture. People get nostalgic about Euro 96, but not New Lads.
We talked, I think, about football's coming home already as being...
Well, Frank came up to Liverpool. Liverpool were playing Leeds, and we went to see Liverpool-Leeds, and then we went back to my studio, myself and Frank, and I sort of played in a bit of a jovial way, the la-di-da-di-da.
Football Comes Home was actually a branding slogan that was already around from the tournament, and whoever actually came up with that we owe a bit of a debt to. But then I think you came up with this melody, which we then together thought it'd be better if it was "It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming." Football's coming home, around the melody that you would come up with.
The pennants were already up around Liverpool, and we sort of said, it may be coming, it's thingy, but it wasn't a lyric.
That's right.
It's going to be great, it's fantastic.
So then I remember getting this cassette with the melody fully formed on it. We sat around, because we lived together at that point, me and Frank, and we were doing fantasy football, and said, let's try and make a song that actually reflects what it's like to be an England fan. And that's why it begins.
Everyone seems to know the score. They've seen it all before.
And finally, with the European Football Championships less than a month away, the inevitable team song has been released. It features Baddiel and Skinner of TV's Fantasy Football.
That is the thing about Three Lions. It's a vulnerable song. It's not an aggressive song about we're going to win. It's a song that says it's a bittersweet song. Frank actually has described it as a bittersweet love song to the England football team. And it sort of is that. In my mind, that's one reason why it was a hit, because it meant that people could sing it on the terraces and wave the cross of St George in an unaggressive way, in a way that just felt, this is a song about how we've lost so often, and yet it's a song that we want to sing.
It's called Three Lions, written and recorded by David Baddiel, Frank Skinner and chart heroes The Lightning Seeds.
As a tune, it's very of its time. I think it's got a lot of Britpop elements to it. It's got a very soaring chorus that everyone can put their arms around their friends and sing along to.
One thing that's unusual about it is, up to that point in time, most football songs hadn't actually been about football. Three Lions is very, very much about football, to the point that it's naming footballers. That tackle by Moore and...
When Lineker scored, Bobby belting the ball.
And Nobby dancing. It was all about reclaiming football as something that you can actually be emotional about.
The video featured brief cameos from Robbie Fowler, Steve McManaman, Jamie Redknapp and Jeff Hurst having a pint down the pub.
We went down to Burnham Beeches and played it to the England squad and didn't get much reaction, to be honest. I mean, now they all love it, but when we first played it, it's basically just a bunch of professional footballers being a bit suspicious. We were not making fun of them, we might be, but in a very affectionate way.
Terry Venables listened to it, tapping his car keys like that along, and then he said, it's a real key tapper, isn't it? I said, I don't think that's a phrase, is it? A key tapper.
Yeah. But despite some reservations from the England camp, the song was an immediate chart hit.
So it goes back up to the #1 position. Baddiel, Skinner and the Lightning Seeds on top with Three Lions. I think it's bad news for the English game.
Hairs up on the back of your neck. It doesn't happen that often when you're playing for England. The whole stadium is singing an anthem like that.
England midfielder Darren Anderton and coach Ted Buxton.
We always got to Wembley Stadium, didn't we, and put that tape on. One particular game, I think it was against Scotland, it didn't work. So we slowed the coach down and got the tape in before we went up Wembley Way.
It felt like the song's catchy chorus echoed across the country for the rest of 1996, as Michael Gibbons explains.
It cropped up in lots of different places. When Alan Shearer signed for Newcastle for a world record fee a few weeks after the tournament, he was unveiled to a crowd of about 15,000 people. They were all singing Shearer's Coming Home. You could hear it being sung in the crowd between songs at Nebworth, the two huge Oasis gigs in August 96, and then it was adapted by Tony Blair for his speech at the Labour Party conference in October of 1996.
Labour has come home to you, so come home to us. Labour's coming home. 17 years of hurt never stopped us dreaming Labour's coming home.
And Tony Blair isn't the only politician to be a fan of the song.
It's time for your next disc. What are we going to hear?
This is Three Lions, the iconic football song.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer.
In order to really appreciate this song, you had to be in Wembley, in the crowd. I was in the upper tier, for the whole stadium to be jumping up and down, rocking to this.
The song went on to be re-released for the 1998 World Cup and again for the 2018 tournament, making it the first song in history to have 4 separate stints at number 1. By the way, the crowd noise looped here over the intro of the track is actually fans of the Danish side, Brøndby. Ian Brodie recorded them at Anfield during a UEFA Cup tie in October 1995.
I think it's bad news for the English game. We're not creative enough, we're not positive enough.
It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home.
We'll go on getting back, it's on getting back, it's on getting back, it's on getting back.
It's coming, football's coming home. It's coming home, it's coming home. It's coming, football's coming home. It's coming home, it's coming home. It's coming, football's coming home. Everyone seems to know the score. They've seen it all before. They're so sure that England's gonna throw it away, gonna blow it away, but I know they can play, 'cause I remember 3 lines on the shirt, Jules Rimet still gleaming, 30 years of hurt, never stop me dreaming.
Then, me and Frank and Ian are at the Scotland game. We win, and then the DJ, who is the unknown person in this story, by the way, the DJ at Wembley puts the song on, and it turns out 87,000 people all know the lyrics.
There'll never be another moment like that in our life. The fans singing the song at Wembley is just the best thing that's ever happened to me, ever, and ever will, I imagine.
An incredible, incredible moment in my life, probably in your life.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely extraordinary. They don't just know the chorus, they know all the lyrics.
It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home, it's coming home. 3 lines on a shirt, it's coming, Jules Rimet still gleaming, it's coming home, 30 years of hurt, it's coming, never stop me dreaming, it's coming home. 3 lines on a shirt, it's coming, Jules Rimet still gleaming, it's coming home, 30 years of hurt, it's coming, never stop me dreaming, it's coming home. 3 lines on a shirt, it's coming.
Hi, I'm Gabby Logan, and this is Euro 96 when football came home. So, on to the knockout stage. The tournament was only 10 days old, but it felt like the whole country had football fever. Everywhere you went that summer, you just couldn't escape Euro 96.
Now stand by, yet another Euro 96 story. London's Soho says no, at least to all those soccer fans. The Times reports that the prospect of a cash register bonanza has left pub landlords, restaurateurs and even the ladies of the night seriously underwhelmed. All the paper says have apparently agreed that the risk of drunken football fan violence far outweighs financial gains. A man at Paul Raymond's review bar tells the Times, "I've told my lads to keep them out. Don't want no violence or vomit in the club." And prostitution cute calling cards which litter the phone booths are similarly wary. One has a freshly written felt tip request. No football fans, thank you.
How bizarre. How bizarre. How bizarre.
I can remember the editor of a national newspaper who rang me up and said, in all seriousness, I would like to bring 3 lions to the England team hotel.
FA Head of Communications David Davis.
Sorry,
Real
hey,
ones.
3 lions? 3 real lions. And I just, someone like me, it goes through your head, Tony Adams eaten by lion.
It's in my face.
Welcome to Wembley Stadium, England against Holland, and a place in the last 8 of Euro 96 at stake.
Both England and Scotland could qualify for the quarter-finals of Euro 96 as they complete their group games tonight, although Scotland's fate is out of their hands.
Giving you everything, all that joy can bring. This I swear.
England's final group game was against arguably one of the strongest sides in Europe.
Well, there's an awful lot of orange here at Wembley, and I don't mean mobile phones. The non-tunnel end is just one huge satsuma with thousands of Dutch fans.
The Netherlands had some of the best footballers in Europe, including a 27-year-old Dennis Bergkamp, who just finished his first season at Arsenal. But his captain at Highbury, Tony Adams, wasn't scared.
Well, it's going to be very tough because I actually like Dennis. Very tough for me to kick him.
Meanwhile, kicking off at exactly the same time in Birmingham, Scotland were playing Switzerland.
Scotland's chances of survival at Euro 96 are hanging by a thread, so much so that for once they want an England win tonight, coupled with a Scotland victory over Switzerland at Villa Park.
It would take something very surprising and exceptional. We're aware of that. We hope to manage to create a shock.
Scotland's Pat Nevin joins us now. Pat, have you ever known the Scots hope for an England win before?
It's not very frequent, but they are our old friends. We're trying to be very friendly at the moment.
Giving you everything, all that joy can bring. This I swear. I'll give you everything. All that I want from you is a promise you will be there. Say we'll be there.
And this is Glenn Tilbrook of Squeeze singing the national anthem.
A nervous night awaited.
And here we go.
But any nerves at Wembley were eased midway through the first half.
Plays it into Ince, who goes down and wins the penalty. Shearer against Van der Sar, and it's 1-0 to England.
And how could we ever doubt that man, Alan Shearer?
A 1-0 half-time lead was followed by a frantic 11-minute spell in the second half.
Corner from Gascoigne, the header from Sheringham. Oh, Sheringham finds the back of the net. Shearer can make it 3, and he does. Great goal for England. Sheringham's there, and it's 4-0 to England. Sheringham's got 2, Shearer's got 2. Holland are being absolutely destroyed here.
Having not scored for England in 21 months before the tournament, Alan Shearer now had 4 goals in 3 games and was the tournament's leading scorer.
Well, I've always said I've got faith in my own ability, and thankfully the manager did.
And there's that song again.
I've never, ever heard it. I think this might be number 1 this week. Might be.
Qualification for the quarter-finals meant some England fans just couldn't keep a lid on their excitement any longer.
Hello, I'm David Mellor, and this is a euphoric late 6:06 on a great night for English football. Let's go to Karen in Barnet. Karen.
What a stunning performance by England tonight. They were playing from their hearts, weren't they?
How do you fancy our chances against the Spanish?
Here we go. I can see us getting all the way to the final on the way we played tonight.
Without question, this is the best night England have had for some time in international football at Wembley.
So England were through to the last 8. But amongst all the celebrations, the late consolation goal for Netherlands at Wembley meant it was heartbreak for Scotland.
Holland have scored, and Scottish hearts completely deflated.
Patrick Kluivert's goal 12 minutes from time was enough to see Holland progress on goal difference, while Scotland, who'd beaten Switzerland 1-0, were knocked out.
A gallant, gutsy Scottish performance, but it is all over. We can see Colin Henry lying, crying. So too is Gary McAllister. And the sun has gone down on Scotland's hopes of making history.
Scotland manager Craig Brown was crestfallen.
Obviously, we're disappointed that we didn't manage to get to the quarter-finals. I thank Terry Venables and his players for doing their very best for Scotland, and unfortunately we couldn't score the other goal that was necessary.
So the Scots go out, not for the first time, but these finals will not be their last. Not with such heart, not with such spirit.
Drumming my pain with his finger. Yes, he
We've now reached the quarter-finals. It's the middle of a heatwave here in the UK, and hosts England are back at Wembley for a showdown with Spain.
At 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, as if you didn't know, England's footballers take on Spain in what's being billed as the most important international in this country since the 1966 World Cup final.
Jonathan Ledgard has found some Spanish fans.
She's having trouble talking because she's got a stick-on moustache under her nose.
Yesterday in the newspapers, in English newspapers, they say that Spanish men has got their moustache because they're mothers.
To look like their mothers.
Yeah. So as we don't have moustaches, we decided to put them on.
I was lucky, if that's the right word, to see two different editions of the Sun newspaper this morning. The English edition, it said, "Turn 'em over, England." The Scottish edition's front page headline was, "Put one over the English."
The home side certainly rode their luck in the first half.
That might not have been offside, you know.
No, I don't think it was.
We might have had a bit of get out of jail on that one.
England was saved by the offside flag of a French linesman twice. If only the French would be so supportive of our beef, joked Jimmy Hill on BBC TV at half-time. The second half brought more good fortune for the hosts.
That is the luckiest free kick England will ever have in the history of the game. That's a penalty.
Spain had two very strong penalty appeals turned down by the referee.
VAR would have had an absolute field day with this particular game.
Author Michael Gibbons.
The game went into extra time, and extra time in Euro 96 was played under the rules of what they called golden goal then, which meant the first goal in extra time would end the game.
So we're going to have the golden goals, extra time, or whatever you want to call it, sudden death, then it's penalties, who knows what's going to happen.
It was to try and get away from teams playing for penalties, to try and get teams to play more attacking football in extra time. But what happened was it had the exact opposite effect. Teams were so afraid of conceding a goal in extra time.
We've played 90 minutes, we've played 30 minutes, we haven't had a golden goal, we will have a penalty shootout.
Perhaps it was inevitable then that the quarter-final went to a penalty shootout, England's first since the World Cup semi-final of 1990.
If you've never been in a penalty shootout, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy because of the nerves.
I used to worry, thought I was going mad in a hurry.
I always used to want to go up first because I always felt that, one, I was confident that I could get us off to a good start, but if the worst thing happened, then you've got a little bit of time to claw it back.
Shearer facing the tunnel end, right-footed, high into the net, and England 1-0.
And even better for England.
Here comes Hierro for Spain, and he's hit the crossbar, and England are one up on penalties.
David Platt then put the second penalty away before one of England's most experienced players had the chance to bury some demons.
Now this man has guts. This is Stuart Pearce. He missed in Turin. He's brave enough. Left-footed, strikes it low, and Pearce punches the air. He's done it. He's erased the memory of 6 years ago. Well done, Stuart Pearce.
I mean, that is a fantastic sporting moment when Stuart Pearce scores that goal and goes crazy. It says how sport can rise above any form of theatre or film or whatever to a level of emotion that you can't get anywhere else.
I can't get no sleep.
Gascoigne then made it 4 out of 4 for England, meaning Spain had to score their next penalty or England would be through to the semi-finals.
Nadal of Barcelona with this penalty, which Spain must score, and Seaman saves for England! Seaman dives to his left! Seaman is the hero once more. Wonderful scenes here.
That is absolutely brilliant. Superb. Stuart Pearce, the way he took his penalty was absolutely fantastic. After the World Cup, the pressure, I'm talking, hang on. The pressure was on him, and he just came up and he struck it, and he was magnificent.
I was just pleased to score, you know. To be honest with you, I could hear my wife's voice saying, "Oh no, not you again," if I missed, you know, so that was spurring me on to hopefully put it in the net.
Today was for the courageous, and I thought the boys fought themselves into the ground.
Gary Neville is down at the interview point. Good afternoon, Gary.
Afternoon.
What was it like to be part of that penalty shootout? Did you want to take one?
I was actually on the 6th one, I think.
Were you?
Well, I was, yeah, but I mean, I'm glad it didn't have to go that far.
England were through to the last 4. The players had 4 days to prepare for the biggest match of their lives, and their country couldn't wait.
English and German football fans are gathering at Wembley for this evening's Euro 96 semi-final.
The biggest game of football in England for the last 30 years. Of course, it's England against Germany in the Euro 96 semi-final.
One Midlands family has more than national pride riding on the result. 2-month-old Anna Tobert, with a German mum and English dad, will have her nationality decided by which team gets furthest in Euro 96.
The two teams meeting now, that really finishes the whole thing off to see whether she's a little English baby or a little German baby.
1966 hero Jeff Hurst.
If you're going to win a competition, at some stage you have to beat the Germans. So we've got a great opportunity to beat them and go on to the final.
So, the stage was set. 26th of June 1996, England's 5th game of the tournament back at Wembley, the venue where 30 years previously they'd beaten the same opponents to lift the biggest prize in world football. The players were ready. The nation watched on.
Hello again, glad you've tuned in. You've obviously heard there's a football match on tonight. England against Germany, the second semi-final of Euro 96. Sporting history waiting to be made.
England, remember, have had to change their strip. They're in their indigo blue, grey, whatever you like to call it. Germany in their traditional white shirts. And Germany will begin the game.
England made the dream start.
Here comes the corner, teed in by Gascoigne. Little header, and Shearer's there! And scores for England after only 2 minutes. A corner kick from Gascoigne. And Alan Shearer charged in like a bull and headed the ball past Kopka. It's an absolutely dream start to the semi-final.
But as ever with the Germans, they weren't down for long.
Now Germany, Moller's going to try and turn. England have to be careful. Helmer's there again. In goes Kant, and it's an equaliser from Germany. It's like Germany's first opportunity in the entire game, and a little side foot from the man who's taken Jurgen Klinsmann's place, Stefan Kuntz, enough to put Germany right back in the semi-final. England won, Germany won.
More than half of the adult population watched the semi-final across both the BBC and ITV.
Well, let us hope we get a golden goal. Let's hope we get a goal and we don't go to those penalties once more.
McManaman, Anderton waits for the fullback, and he hits the post, and it goes straight back to Kopka. How unlucky can you get?
In the first period of extra time, one of 2 golden opportunities for England.
Terry Venables cannot believe that.
Then, with the spectre of golden goal winner still hanging over both teams, one of those truly what-if moments.
Shearer loses his man, Gascoigne! I don't believe it.
When I spoke to him afterwards, I was like, what happened? He said, thought the goalie was going to touch it. He said, so I was waiting for the little flick, and that little bit of hesitation stopped.
All Gascoigne had to do was make contact, and England would have been in the final of the European Championship.
Isn't it ironic?
Should have scored, really. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if the keeper had got a touch, I thought he was going to get a touch.
It's penalties, folks. England won, Germany won, and only penalties will separate the two sides.
For the second time in 5 days, it was a penalty shootout for England.
It's a strange situation, the penalty, isn't it? You know if you miss a penalty for England, you're going to be remembered for missing a penalty.
82,000 people inside Wembley and the 23.8 million watching at home held their breath.
There's things that I regret.
Here comes Shearer with his right foot, and he scores! David Platt, he'll hit it with his right foot, and he scores! Stuart Pearce, everybody from England wants him to score! Can Gascoigne put England back in front? Here he comes, and he does! Sheringham scores! And it's 5-4 to England!
How did we get to Gareth? Was he always on the list, or did you decide there and then?
I just thought he had a good temperament, and he was the first one to volunteer, because no one really wanted it.
Well, this man has been cool and calm and collected. Gareth Southgate. It's now 5-5. It goes to the sudden death.
It shouldn't have been Southgate, by the way. I don't want to go over this, but Darren Anderton could have taken a penalty. Paul Ince could have taken a penalty. Southgate, for goodness sake.
And Gareth Southgate, who has been magnificent at the heart of England's defence, now has to score a goal to keep England going in the European Championship. Here he comes. Oh, and it's been saved by Kopka. Southgate, he looks down, he looks forlorn.
I could deny, but I'll never realise I'm just chasing rainbows all the time.
Muller comes up, and it's a goal for for Germany. The dream dissolves for England.
You've been with the players. I mean, how are they taking it?
It's very quiet. There's no one saying a word. They're all obviously very upset, and particularly for Gareth, of course.
Obviously, I'm bitterly disappointed that I've let down not only the nation, but more importantly, the lads in there who've worked so hard. And it just feels that it's difficult to know what to say, to be honest. Obviously, I'm just bitterly disappointed that the euphoria that the whole country was feeling has come to an end. But I've got to live with that, and I've got to get on with it now.
I'm just chasing rainbow.
I think it felt as a nation like the party was over. It was such a terrible way for England to finish their run at those championships. And of course, it had to be against the Germans, didn't it?
And it's German celebrations.
And the cameras now are on Gareth Southgate, and you just got to feel for him. He must be wanting the ground to open up and swallow him. Such a tragic way to lose a semi-final with so much at stake.
England are out.
The tournament was over when England went out, for all of us, really. Again, only sport can do that, because most things in life have a kind of dribbling off, bang, but it was bang. As soon as Southgate missed it, bang, it's like falling off a cliff.
Just as they had at Italia 90, Germany went on to be victorious in the final after beating England on penalties in the semis. They beat the Czech Republic 2-1.
When they return home with the trophy and Jurgen Klinsmann comes out onto the balcony, someone hands him the microphone. It's a lovely moment of schadenfreude, I have to say.
The magical summer when football came home had ended, or as Des Lynam put it,
football had come home, the championship had gone away to someone else's home.
But in truth, our story isn't really about Klinsmann, Venables, Shearer or Gascoigne. The road to this point, 25 years on from Euro 96, has, without a doubt, been longest for Gareth Southgate. Aged just 25 at Euro 96, the defender went on to play for another 8 years, winning 48 more caps for England in the process. He even made fun of his semi-final penalty miss in a Pizza Hut advert later the following season.
Come on, Gareth, have some pan pizza.
Pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
Thanks a lot, boys. I feel much better now.
He eventually retired in 2004. A 3-year spell as Middlesbrough manager ended in 2009, followed by a stint as a TV pundit.
What I'm saying is that's where I think he's very unlucky, and Manchester United are very unlucky to go out. Of course.
He joined the FA coaching setup in 2013, initially as manager of the under-21s. Then, in 2016, 20 years on from his life-defining 3 weeks at Euro 96, Gareth's career finally came full circle.
Gareth Southgate has said he's extremely proud to have been confirmed as the new England football manager. The 46-year-old has signed a 4-year contract.
In 2018, at his first major tournament as national team manager, Southgate was finally able to exercise his own penalty missed 22 years before, on a famous night for England in Moscow.
England have won a penalty shootout at a World Cup.
And Gareth Southgate jumped into the arms of his backroom staff and just hugged and...
That penalty shootout was planned to the thou of an inch by Gareth Southgate, because he knows the disappointment of missing a penalty when you're not prepared.
The relief must be immense. For him, it is huge.
One really nice thing that he did that night as well was that he immediately went over and consoled Uribe, the Colombian player who had missed in the shootout for Colombia, because he, more than anyone else in that stadium, would understand what that miss means and how a miss like that can come to define you in the eyes of the rest of the people in your country.
As he told the mental health charity Heads Up in 2020, the last quarter of a century has been a cathartic experience.
Missing the penalty with England, without doubt, when I look back, that was professionally the most challenging experience that I've been through. The country was on a tidal wave of emotion and good feeling, and then you walk away from the stadium feeling you're the person that ultimately that is responsible for that finishing. I never felt anger, actually. I just felt regret, remorse, responsibility to a small degree that still lives with me. To have failed under pressure, under that huge spotlight, is hard professionally to take. Time has given me the opportunity to put that into better perspective. Where does missing a penalty kick actually have any importance in the overall scheme of life?
I hope you've enjoyed our look back at Euro 96. It might not have had the fairy tale ending the hosts dreamt of, but 25 years on, the tournament still has a special place in the memories of those who lived through that summer. A dizzying, euphoric time where for 3 hot June weeks, everyone seemed high on life, and infectious optimism and positivity brought about by football.
I think Euro 96 changed England's relationship with its national side. Prior to Euro 96, England were playing in front of 20,000 people at a Wembley that holds 80,000. All England games are pretty much sold out now, and they are events.
It wasn't just football fans, it was everyone. It felt that everyone was obsessed with Euro 96, really, the whole country, you know.
Here we go then, 3 lions on a shirt and all that, jewellery may still gleaming.
There was just this huge sense of change in the air. It was such an exciting time.
There'll never be another moment like that in our lives.
Although I've had an element of redemption, the team I played with missed the opportunity to win a major tournament, and those guys didn't get another chance. I can't hide from the fact that that happened.
When I look back on that period, it was a privilege to be part of that. It was a high spot of my life.
I didn't want it to end because the whole country was with you.
It's a huge distance that English football has travelled in the last 30 years, and Euro 96, I would say that was definitely a stamp on the accelerator in that whole process.
Great memories looking back. I love it. People come up and say, oh, I'm not boring you talking about Euro 96. Tell me about it. Tell me what it was all about, and we'll relive it.
They do come up and they say that is the best feeling we've ever had.
It's hard to convey to people that weren't there at the time, but I think those years through the mid-90s were the most optimistic that I can remember in my lifetime.
Euro 96, When Football Came Home, was written, edited and produced by Mike Williams. Chart show archive was provided by Richard White. The orchestral version of 3 Lions is by l'Orchestre Cinématique. Don't forget you can catch up with the other programmes in Radio 2's Summer of 96 season on the BBC Sounds app by searching for Summer of 96.